Me and Grayson, like a year or so ago, were playing with Legos, and he was getting frustrated because he wanted to make like a candy machine or like a little coin safe out of Legos, but he was struggling to figure it out.
I can 3D
And
print
so,
that.
right,
Welcome to episode 4 of Ponder Pod. Today we're talking about why we make things. Again, Ponder Pod is found on YouTube, which you're probably watching us on right now, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you want to download the episodes and take us with you wherever you go, like, subscribe, and comment, which is the stupid YouTube spiel, but it actually helps me out. I need the Vanity link at 50 subscribers. We're getting there slowly but surely. And of course, always send me a message. Let me know if you have ideas for a topic, ideas for a guest, or you want to be a guest yourself. Today, I am joined by my brother Christian again, and my buddy Mike. How are you both doing this fine, rainy, cold evening?
Good.
not too terrible, not too terrible at all.
All right, so I'm wearing my Colin hat because last time when Christian was on with Keller for the Becoming a Parent episode, he was right next to me on the screen, and people kept like saying how it was confusing to have us next to each other. So, I mean, it already says Colin right here, and it already says Christian underneath his, but you'll remember. Somebody actually made these for us at a bachelor party we went to, so we knew everybody's names, and it was just funny because people would still call us the wrong name. Anyway, new thing we started doing on the podcast 2 weeks ago. That was the last episode. Episode 3 was with Mickey. We started doing good news at the beginning of the episode. Good news is something we do at the beginning of my team meetings at work. And we kind of just talk about something that's going well, either in your personal or professional life. I guess we'll go with personal here, unless you really want to tell us what's going on with your professional lives. But good news. Mike, you go first as the newcomer here. What is your good news? What's going on in your life?
We're doing a slight remodel in the upstairs. We just put in new flooring, and it just kind of gives a whole new aspect to our house. It kind of seems more cleaner, and it's moving in a direction that we want to go.
Nice.
And we feel more comfortable up there.
Did you install it
So
yourself?
Yep. This weekend I started putting in the flooring, and it's just,
Flooring
I don't know.
sucks.
Yeah, my knees and my back were feeling great on Monday, and then I had to go through a pop on top of that, and I was like, I'm just not feeling it.
And it's funny
Not feeling it at all.
because Christian wants me to go back home and help him redo his floor. So let's just discourage him even more on that idea so I don't have to help him. Christian, what's your good news?
Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna steal that one. We're also working on the house. I know that's a whole different episode for home renovation, but we also bought new flooring for our kitchen. The kitchen and the bathroom are the two things we've kind of neglected since we moved in here 2 years ago, and I'm excited for it to warm up because outside is going to be a huge project for the spring to just clean up and kind of finalize some landscaping. But
Wait,
overall,
what are you doing outside? I helped you last summer, like 3 different days, hauling rock and building a fence, and
it's just finishing all that stuff.
it was
So
already
we're just
finished.
kind of getting the fence was
Ripping
done,
down
but-
trees. I risked my life for your backyard. Now you're saying it's not finished?
correct.
Nothing's ever finished when you're working inside the house.
Yeah, no, it's not how it works.
Well, since you guys both had house related good news, my good news is 2 years ago to the day, as of Sunday, would have been 2 years since I bought my first house. We've since moved already, but that first house was a fixer-upper, and I learned everything I could possibly learn about a house in that short year and a half. But we'll actually talk about it a little bit today when we dive into the do-it-yourself fixer-upper type topics. But this episode is about why we make stuff. I've known Mike for probably, I don't even know, 10 years, 12 years, at least 10.
I'd say at least 10, because I think I started at Target.
Yeah.
When I was 19 or 20.
Yeah,
I
and then
would
Iowa
say.
Central.
Mm-hmm.
And Christian, I've known you for a little while too. But what?
Sadly,
My first question is, who are you? Which is dumb, but why do we make stuff is too broad of a question. So let's just do like quick little, just raise your hand when I say something. that you make. All right, first one, woodworking.
I mean, I tried.
You liar. Legos. Waffle blocks. We
Not
did when
sure what
we
that
had them
is.
when we were kids.
Is that what you peed on in the closet when you were like 5?
In that weird brown bag, yes.
Yeah.
Fine art. So like drawing, painting, fixer upper houses. Or fixed up a house. We don't do it for like a living.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Do you have a vinyl cutter or earrings? I guess Christian, you do earrings. Libby does earrings. Photography, videos, podcast, build a PC. Just to name
Working
a
on
few.
that one. Working on that one.
Very slowly.
The market's just a little rough.
Very rough.
So the main question is like, why do we do this stuff? Like, we clearly just talked about waffle blocks that go 20 something years back easily, which same with Legos, all that stuff. So like, why do we, and I should preface this a little bit too. This is going to be more of a discussion versus like quite as structured as the other episodes. I have some questions written down that we'll get through, but this is going to be lots of back and forth and just kind of like figuring this out, thinking out loud, basically this episode. So I'll just start with Mike. Why do you think we make stuff, or rather, why do you think you make stuff? Like, what is it that you get out of it? Why do you do it?
I was gonna say, because you and I went to art school. I'm very curious to have Mike's take on it, since like it was the career path we chose. So that's kind of more what I am hoping out of his question.
So the thing I enjoy making most is furniture, like buying furniture, more less than or more than like a construction per se. So when I make a table, the reason I want to make a table is because I almost don't want to contribute to the throwaway culture that we currently live in. And I want to be able to make something that whenever I'm old, my kids can say, hey, my dad built that and it's still standing, versus when I go to move something in 5 years and it's from Target or Walmart, IKEA, and it just falls apart.
Yeah. Christian, what about you? Why do you think we make stuff, or you make stuff?
I have no idea. I think some of it's probably a combination of wanting attention and wanting something to work on. And like, it's awesome to go up to people like, oh yeah, just build a computer. Like, a year ago, I never would have said I was going to do that. And I had no freaking idea how to do it. But like, I think especially our generation, to have YouTube as a resource, like we can make whatever we want. Like, obviously with what we're going to talk about, like we've all watched a couple of videos and we learned how to do this weird new stuff. And I mean, having gone to art school, like we learned some things firsthand. We took art classes in middle school and high school and stuff too. But I think now it's just different when you're like, you know what? I think I could replace a front door. And then you just go buy a door and you try it because you watched a YouTube video. Like, some of it's the satisfaction too. It's just like the mini victories of like, hey, I made this. And kind of like you said, like whether you can upcycle something or you can make something from scratch, or you can just say you made it compared to going to buy it and it's cheaper. Like, I love the aspect of having kind of that heirloom passed down thing, because having moved my grandpa and my mom recently, people are like, oh, does anyone want great uncle so and so's baby crib? We're like, no, like this can't be up to code anymore. My child's gonna die in this thing. But like at the same time, we're like, oh hey, great uncle Jimmy Bob, like
Jimmy Bob.
maybe
We don't
I
have an
want
Uncle
this.
Jimmy Bob.
But then you look at it,
You
and
could have just said
sometimes you're like,
Uncle Bob, because it's true and super generic.
well,
Like, it didn't
I was
have to
trying to
be
make up.
Jimmy Bob.
I wasn't even thinking of that. But like it's funny to look at it and be like, all right, is this like good quality? Can I reuse it for something? And if not, throw it away. Like, so I think going back to the original question, I think I do it for the satisfaction, for the mini victory of doing it, and more than anything to say that I did, probably.
I kind of want to tag off of what you just said. There's very few things but that feel the same way as getting the satisfaction of completing something that you had no idea what you were doing when you first started.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like it's almost hard to explain. You
It's like
start
raising a
and
kid.
yeah, except I still don't know what I'm doing. So
YouTube doesn't really help.
no, there's no great
I have
YouTube
no
or there
idea
is
what
no
you're talking about.
instructions.
You can't really troubleshoot anything.
Right.
Did you
So
plug it
like
in? Did you unplug it and plug it back in?
when when you start out, you're almost like borderline overwhelmed with what's going on, and you might have a kind of a small panic attack. But then once it at some point it just kind of clicks, and once it clicks, you're like, oh man, I kind of know what I'm doing now. And then you get to the end, and you look and you're like, man, that really wasn't as hard as what I made it out to be, and all I needed to do was just get started.
It borderlines mental illness and like obsessing over things. Like to have the anxiety around it, like, hey, you're gonna build a computer. I can't do that. I don't know how to do
Hmm.
that. Like, and then to then watch 1,000 YouTube videos to sit and look at computer parts for 3 days. Like, it's
Hmm.
constant. Like, I think there's some obsession to it until you achieve it. So I think I don't mean like you're mentally ill, but I do think it's an addiction of some sort where it's like, I don't know how to do this, so I'm going to learn how to do this
Hmm.
obsessively, have all the anxiety about it up front. And then at the end, you're like, okay, it wasn't as bad as I thought.
Hmm.
And again, that's where the satisfaction comes in, but it's a whole shit show up until then because you're just like, you're scared, but in a
Right.
good way. And you're wanting to overcome that because a computer is a very expensive mistake if you don't figure it out.
Yeah.
Or woodworking or anything else like, oh hey, I cut off my finger, like,
So you
oh
guys,
whoops.
you both kind of just touched on this with like why we do things, the learning part of it. So basically, we can just say like the three of us just bought 3D printers. Christian and I each bought the Creality Ender 3, and Mike got a Creality resin.
It's the LD002R
So
is what
basically,
it is.
none of us have any idea what the hell we're doing at all.
Not a clue.
We've each had panic moments in the last 36 hours at least. And
I'd say the last like 6.
but the point
Like,
is like it's something that we've always been interested in, and we're like, oh, this could be cool. And then we're like, wait, they're that affordable, and plus we just got some government money, and what a better way to blow it than to like learn a new craft, a new hobby.
mhm,
So I've had mine, I think, for 2 weeks maybe, and I've gone from what is happening to this is pretty awesome. I printed something pretty quick, back down to I need to sell this thing or reassemble it or something because it is gonna catch fire. And then today I went back and did something new, tried something else, back to basics, and it worked. So quite the roller coaster of emotions and knowledge. But like
mhm,
at least for me, I bought a 3D printer because A, I wanted to make cool nerd stuff. 2, I wanted to learn 3D modeling a little bit more at all, really. I mean, I know super basics and like SketchUp, which I know, Mike, you've done before
mhm,
for some of your furniture stuff. And 3, kind of just to figure it out. Like, I don't know anybody else with a 3D printer, maybe one person besides us. And it's just like,
just to say that you did it.
that what? Say that again?
Just to say that you did it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's also like it wasn't a crazy investment. I mean, the printers that we bought, Christian and I got, were the cheapest models. They're $200, and
Mhm,
with the filament, which is like the plastic that it melts, I mean, $250 for a new hobby that will give you years of interest and maybe even buy another printer down the road. Like that is worth it to me. Even building the PC that allowed us to do stuff like the podcast right now that we're doing, which is also something that I'm making every other week. Branding, social media, all that stuff. Like, this is a better way than to buy. This is an argument, I suppose. Buying like a video game that's $60 that you'll spend 20 hours with, you're done with it, you beat it, it's on the shelf, it's a wasted $60. Let's say it
mhm,
that way. I know my gamer friends are going to attack me for that, but versus investing the money a little bit and then there's no end to this stuff. The stuff that I've made so far is so different, and the practical uses that, the practical things that people make, the imaginative thing. You can literally model like. So Mike built me a record cabinet 5 years ago. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago.
I think so.
He built me a
I
record
think
cabinet that I
4.
kind of designed, came up with a concept, and he actually designed it, cut it, glued it, stained it. Looks beautiful. I love it. Holds all my records downstairs. I should maybe bring it in and put it behind me. But that's something you could have literally modeled in SketchUp, and now you can take that SketchUp file into a 3D slicer and print it.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that crazy? Like, think of this. So, like, Becca and I have always seen like those Barbie house kits you can get at, like, Hobby Lobby that are like balsa wood. Like, you can literally print custom dollhouse furniture. like think of the
Right.
possibilities. Custom Legos, custom. I mean, you can do anything.
I literally was talking to my daughter. I was like, you know all those Barbie accessories that you like to play with? I was like, if you want a pair of pink sunglasses, I can make them.
Yep.
Like, I can make whatever. And I
I'm
think,
a tiny cobbler.
yeah. And I'm gonna
Tiny
be
shop.
honest, there is no reason that I need a 3D printer. I got it because my curiosity won, and I just wanted
Because I
it's
peer
something
pressured
new.
you.
I wanted one way before this, but I mean,
I
you
was
pushed me over the edge, so
yeah.
so and just I don't know, because I feel like if you're not using your brain to make something or continue to try and learn, I feel like you're just gonna keep going on tracks they're gonna lead you somewhere, but you have no choice where it's leading
You're
you,
just
and
kind of coasting. Yeah.
yeah, you're coasting, and I think that's kind of boring. And I mean, life's short, and do what you can.
It's only $200. I mean,
Right? Yeah, like I could have spent $200 on
Whiskey.
useless stuff that's not a waste of money.
You're a
No,
man
I
of
could
fine
have spent
taste.
yes, I could have spent $200 on something useless and gotten nothing out of it.
Yeah.
I can continuously get something out of this. Granted, right now I'm still learning and having a lot of failures, but inevitably
A
I'm
lot
gonna
of
figure it
failures.
out. And if so be it, if it takes me a week to figure it out, if it takes me 2 weeks, I'm still gonna get there, and I'm still gonna keep trying. I'm not gonna give up.
I think that's a good point too, because a lot of these hobbies is about sticking with it, whether
Mhm.
it is building a computer or woodworking. Like, I bought all of the shit I possibly could to do woodworking, and I still have the intent to do it, and I used a lot of it like for house projects, which was my excuse. But like,
Same.
I've always wanted to, like, Colin and I used to find scrap wood and like just start screwing stuff together and like, hey, this looks cool, whatever. But like, I've always wanted to learn that on a higher level, not to the level of making furniture necessarily, but like, hey, I can make a cool bookshelf or something. But what kind of hobbies have either of you guys tried or spent a bunch of money on only to completely
Hate
never
it.
do it
Woodworking.
or to hate it?
If anybody wants to buy a brand new table saw, not even put together yet, or a brand new router, I've got them.
Um, let me
I
trying
mean,
to think.
woodworking it for me was mostly about having tools because I had none when I bought my first house. First house was a fixer upper and it needed a lot of hours and a lot of work. And so I bought a lot of tools. I pretty much have every tool. I literally have every tool that I think I could need, except for I kind of want like a bandsaw and a Dremel. Those are my last two that I really want. But that's more for 3D stuff now. For woodworking,
Hmm.
it just was one of those things. I didn't have the space. I didn't have a garage at that first house. I do have the space now, but now I'm like less interested in it because that's like, to me, going from this dusty old house to like this new house. I don't want to make this house all dusty and gross like that house was. So for me, woodworking was awesome, but like I would much rather spend time to 3D model something and print it and trial and error that over and over versus risk losing my finger because I put a table saw together wrong or something stupid.
But there's something satisfying about that too. Like the scale, especially like
There definitely
whether
is.
it's
Yeah.
whether it's just cutting up
Right.
shit to like shiplap a wall or something, or just cutting scrap wood for something. But like there's something so satisfying about
Let me
the
put it this
grittiness of
way.
that.
Maybe it's because I'm not super far removed from all that hard work and stuff that I had to do for that house. So right now I am kind of just coasting with like my more like I
It's
can
not a
sit in my
necessity.
office and build something idea. That is much more intriguing to me right now. But like I said, I have all the tools, and like Mike made that beautiful record cabinet. Like if I can make something to put behind me instead of driving to IKEA to get something, like that's gonna last so much longer and it's gonna be so much nicer. And especially if I built it and it
Mm-hmm.
turns out, I can be like, hey, I built this thing behind me versus like, yeah, I put together this Calyx bookshelf from IKEA.
Compressed cardboard.
Yeah, that's all it
Literally.
is. Particle
So
board.
I the with woodworking, the most satisfactory part, in my opinion, and I know this differs for a lot of people because a lot of people have the complete opposite feeling that I do. They love the feeling of putting on the finish and finishing the cabinet, and the finish is what brings your project to life. Okay, and it turns a bland piece of wood into something bright and vibrant. See, my favorite part is taking a board that is oblong, it's wonky, it's curved, and getting it down into a square form and getting several boards out of that one large chunk and turning those boards into something completely different. Like one of the nicest things I ever made, Christian, uh, Libby actually came and took pictures of it, that little table. Um, that was made out of an old china hutch that I was going to throw away. I took the random shelves and the sideboards and I cut it up. I got rid of all the finish and it turned into a fantastic and beautiful table. Like to go from something that doesn't look like a table to something that is a functional table is just, I don't
It's
know.
it's the
I can't explain it. Yeah.
recycling process, and I think that's something that I have looked into a lot with 3D printing. Like I know Colin sent me a birdhouse thing a bird feeder you can attach to like an old Coke bottle or something, which I've seen a ton of. But like if you use your head and if you can do any 3D design of any sort, like literally any garbage you have, you can use for something. And
Hmm.
like I'm not like a super save the planet type person, but I definitely think
Should
like
be.
we should be recycling things that we can. And like you said, to take something and completely hack away at it until it's something else that's completely functional and it probably fits your needs better than a china hutch. Like
Hmm.
unless you have a bunch of china to store. Um
Let's be honest. It's 2021. Who's collecting China at this
it's all
point?
paper.
Chinette plates.
Yeah.
Chinette.
The paper ones. Those really nice paper
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
I think
They're
part of
so
it's I think part of it
expensive.
too is the idea, especially with 3D printing. I want to come up with a practical idea of something to print that somebody else hasn't done yet, which at this
Hmm.
point is difficult, but like so like my cheese head back here, phew, this isn't on the wall yet cuz I don't have a hook for it. But like it's also a weird thing because it's kind of heavy, it's foam. It's like 5 inches deep, 4 inches maybe. And like if you hang it here, it falls over. So now I need to make a hook that will hold it evenly on each side so it doesn't go anywhere. And I can actually mount this on the wall. And I think I could 3D model it. I bought those calipers today, so that'll actually help. But I want to like make something that I can hang this on. Yeah, that's not like super cool. Like, oh, awesome, you made a hook. But like, I can't find one at Target or Home Depot or Menards. Menards is a hardware store for people who don't know that. Like, I want to make something, and
That's what I
Right.
did today, actually. I made this my desk is really, really thick. It's almost 2 inches thick. It's like a
did you make your
giant
desk?
wood slab. No.
Oh,
And
lame.
um so it was Libby's old desk. So I measured, and this is going to be a hook for my headphones. So it'll literally slide on my desk and hold. And then just because I always put it on my mic stand, which fine, it works, but it'd be nice to just not have to do that. So unfortunately, it's off by just like 5 millimeters. But again, in 3D printing, that's like a huge mistake. But
Mhm.
again, on that, like I printed a stand for my PlayStation controller. It's got the PlayStation logo. The controller sits on there perfectly. Like I didn't need this. I could have gone and bought something like this, or it can just sit on my desk. But like to have some organization and for this to take an hour to print, I just downloaded it. So some of that too is like the accessibility of a lot of this stuff. Like someone else is doing this for us. There's no need to spend the money. It didn't really take any of my time. I just started the printer, but um, I think that's a really cool aspect of this too. Like things you didn't know you needed, but now you want or you can do, like a hook. Uh,
And
Completely worth it.
it literally cost you pennies on the dollar. Like
Right.
to go to Walmart and buy that exact thing. Granted, it's probably a slightly, or yeah, it'll be a higher quality plastic, but you don't need a high quality
Right.
plastic to hold your
It'd be
PlayStation.
10 or 20 bucks probably, and it cost me
Yeah,
probably less than $1 in
yeah,
plastic.
it's function over form. You need something to
Yep.
function. You don't need it to be pretty or the shiniest thing. You just need it to do its job. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
So
I'm trying to undo this thing that I 3D printed. It's a little capsule. It's like a maze that there's only one right way to do it, but you're probably hearing the plastic sliding.
mhm.
So I'm trying to get it undone because we're talking about 3D printing. I was going to show some examples, but before we get to that, since we're still talking about, put it away, Christian. Customization, I think, is a huge element of making that you don't have to start over from scratch, whether it's repurposing for furniture or, like Christian said, making a hook for his desk, specific for his desk. I've just gotten to the point in my life where I feel okay modifying things. Like I screwed a that was a weird hang there.
Becca.
I screwed a power strip to the underside of my desk for cable management. And it was the smartest thing I've done in a long time. Like the backs
Mhm.
of them literally have tracks for screw holes. And then I just popped off the back, slid it on, put everything in place, and the cable management is 1,000 times better than ever before. So it's just like, why does it seem like we're at least afraid to do some of that stuff? Like, are we going to screw up the already not great furniture? It's not like I'm taking your record cabinet and like, this should be a chair. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
Someday.
trying to make things more
I think
functional.
it's I think it's complacency.
And the fact that there's not instructions.
Right. I I think I don't want this to sound mean or anything, but
Do
I
it.
think people are so afraid to do something normal or out of the normal, and they take everything at face value. If this thing is supposed to do this one thing, that's all I have it. That's all it can do. Like I can't change it to make it better. Oh well, if this isn't working this way, I need to get rid of this and go buy something different. How about you maybe kind of think constructively and make that modification in knowing that you did it rather than wasting this to go spend more money on that. And it's people are afraid to think for themselves.
I think this is going to be a huge portion of this conversation. It's literally the lack of imagination. Like,
Hmm.
I was trying to think back to like when we would have first started making things, and the only thing I could really think of, besides like making up games and stuff, like we
Mr. Monkey.
we made up a lot of games, Mr. Monkey, mini baseball, all these things. Remember that time you we were playing mini football and you knocked over a glass full of milk and mom was not happy.
Oh no, I thought you were gonna say when the basement window broke.
The basement window broke?
Yeah, with a little foam football.
Oh yeah, the St. Ed's one, right?
Yep.
It was like, yeah. Anyway, it was styrofoam. I digress. Anyway, I was thinking like blanket forts and
Hmm.
games. We had Legos and we had waffle blocks, like we already discussed in detail earlier. Do you think, since you both have children in a digital age, do you think or do you already do, like, do you still make blanket forts? Do you still make them do games, or do you let them kind of focus on digital? Like, how do you make sure your kids are going to grow up with an imagination? I have written down, like, kids have Minecraft and stuff these days, which is basically a digital sandbox, which is fantastic. But at the same time, there's something about putting together a Lego kit, then taking it apart and making something totally different with those same pieces. Like,
Mhm.
that stuff we all did, and now we're interested in all this stuff. And I worry that it's not going to be the same with the future generations.
You're right. It's not. Um, I think so. I'll probably be able to speak to this better because my kids are a little older than
Yeah,
your. So Grayson's 9, and Lily's gonna turn 5 next month.
it's insane.
It's crazy,
You're
isn't it?
getting old. You're getting old there,
I know.
boy.
I've got gray hairs right here.
I do too,
You,
actually.
Same.
you guys don't have hair,
No,
but
I
mine's
I
turning gray.
I get gray hairs. They're just really small and few.
Right. So
They just don't exist.
there's a couple different things I want to hit on here. So me and Grayson, like a year or so ago, were playing with Legos, and he was getting frustrated because he wanted to make like a candy machine or like a little coin safe out of Legos, but he was struggling to figure it out.
I can 3D
And
print
so,
that.
right, right, okay. And so what he was doing was looking up YouTube videos, okay, and which is it's fine, but it's like, why don't you try and just go grab that bucket and just start putting stuff together, and if it fails, take it apart. I was like, well, when I was a kid, I made like these race cars and stuff, and he goes, well, how'd you know how to put them together? And I go, what do you mean? He goes, did you watch a video or instructions on it? I'm like, no, I just thought about it and put it together. And he was so confused because he, like, since we grew up in such drastic time periods, it just didn't register that I had to think for myself because the internet then was non existent. I didn't have a phone to be able to quick YouTube something like literally what we just got done talking about. I just had to think about it, and it was hard for him to understand, which is crazy. And then something that he's gotten better at. So him and his friends and his sister love making forts, just love it to death. Okay, and something that's positive that's came out of COVID was that he is, while being home last year, forced him to be creative. Like he got to a point where he was tired of watching YouTube, he was tired of playing Minecraft, he was tired of watching TV shows, that he just started to craft things. Cardboard, Legos, hot glue guns, sticks. And
Sticks.
um yeah, with him, yeah, literally
That's awesome.
popsicle sticks. And so I think COVID helped. I think it might hurt some people, but it helped Grayson with his imagination, and I think that's pretty cool.
I think
It's
that
go ahead.
I think that's a super interesting and like really important observation at the same time. Like, um, thinking back to like in the classroom, like in third grade or fourth grade, like the things that teachers would give you, or like, and you'd use shaving cream to clean the desks, like things like that. When teachers would come up with things to like, you can sit and draw, but then it's serving two purposes. Obviously, quarantine is tough for a lot of people, and like, I know the three of us. Well, Colin, I guess, got to work from home for a little bit, but like we didn't. So we didn't get like
Mhm.
that downtime, and having a child in the pandemic, I wish I would have, but um, I think it's really a good point that one, he made the most out of it, because
Mhm.
being stuck in this like purgatory of, is the world gonna collapse, and is everything gonna be okay, is not easy. But to like take that and to all of a sudden get creative, I think that's a super important thing. And I think
Don't say super
like
important.
important counter down
Ding,
here.
Important.
ding, ding.
Um, I think being in school for design, I think Colin can probably attest to this too. Like they'd be like, all right, you have to go to Goodwill and find 2 objects and make something out of this. Or
Not in my school.
okay, that happened at my school. Found objects. So just working with what you have or going to find something and recycling it essentially. So it's like when you said sticks and Colin laughed,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good thing though, because again, when they're done,
I
they're
was
either
just
gonna
picturing the
die.
kid in the backyard trying to start a fire by rubbing 2 sticks together. That's why I was laughing.
But like
He's got a magnifying glass for that.
he watched a video on how to make fire, and now he can.
He did. Literally.
So I think the whole point of this was inspiration can come from really stupid things, and I think that's really
Mhm.
important. I intentionally, like when I'm doing logos or any type of design, I try to do things that I think are stupid first, because sometimes the easy answer is like the most obvious. But my favorite logos that I've ever designed came from me messing around with a really bad idea. And I think whether it's playing with sticks until you start a fire or, Minecraft until your eyes bleed, like
Yeah.
I think doing the most of what you have is important, because not everyone can buy a 3D printer. But I think that's something that I want to do better about, is using what I have. I have a ton of art supplies behind me and I don't use it. I have like 1,000 different kinds of like pens and Sharpies and markers and oil pastels and all this stuff that I've never used, or I used once in college, and I so badly want to get back to that because there's no reason not to, aside the fact like I suck at some of it, but that's the only way to get better at something too. Like
Right.
we can watch videos about 3D printing, or we can like take a night off of video games to like draw or something.
Right. Um, I I kind of adopted this motto to live by or to learn by. I would honestly rather fail at something 10 times in a row and figure it out on the 11th try than figure it out the very first time. Because I don't know what I don't know, and I don't know how to do it wrong so I can do it right. Okay? So I want to be able to try it before somebody tells me how to do it. So, like this 3D printing, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm failing. And I'm getting so frustrated. I know that I need to, like, I'm watching videos to try and get better at it. I'm also trying to diagnose it myself to figure out what I need to do. So, granted, I've had 4 failures, but each time I've learned what not to do. Like the first one, I didn't have enough supports. Okay, I needed more supports. The second one, I had way too many supports. And then the next one, I completely didn't read my instructions and didn't use the right settings. So I now know not to do that thing on my next task. So I'm just crossing off the list and making it better.
Part of that's a flaw
And
in us though too, because I think we all went through this where we all jumped the gun, like we know what we're doing, and then we just destroyed. Like
Mhm.
we skipped the basic steps. Like my issue 2 days ago with my 3D printer was I it wouldn't the print wouldn't stick to the hotbed, and so last night I was talking to both of you, and I'm like, oh man, this is gonna. I need to buy this. I need to try this. I need to do this, and this. I went back to everything being out of the box, default settings, and redid one thing, the most basic thing I could have done, and my printer worked better today when I printed this little block, this little test block, this XYZ block. This is the nicest thing I've printed in the 2 weeks that I've had it. And I printed some cool stuff. I printed this little bust of David, the Florentinian statue.
Mhm.
Super cool. This is the first full thing, and it took like 6 hours. But again, this could have looked way cooler than this block if I would have just followed the basic instructions before I started to jump around and try to figure stuff out. However,
Mhm.
because of all the other failures that I have, I got a pile of failed plastic over here. Like,
Mhm.
I agree with you. You definitely have to kind of go at it your own way, but you should definitely read the instructions and know what you're doing with the basics before you
Right.
start to screw things up.
You're right. I'm overly confident. I'm like, I know what I'm doing,
I did the same thing.
but I don't. I don't know what I'm
Some of
doing.
it
And
is like ignorantly fun though. Like
yeah,
it just trusting the process of you'll figure it out, but it's also you'll learn that later,
mhm,
and that's the hard thing to hear sometimes. Like, oh, you'll get to that later. Like you'll run across this, but I think it's better to know ahead of time that it's normal, and then when you run into it, you can look up a video or something, which again is a major luxury, but
You're right though, because
it's not fun
well,
sometimes.
it's not as fun if it's just working right either. Though, like
True,
if I
because I've
printed
had
if I printed a bunch of cool stuff and was like, what else can I print? It's like, yeah, that's awesome. I wish that was the case,
you're,
but at the same time, it's like, oh, this happened, and I'm gonna have to fix it eventually. So I need to
mhm,
dive in and address it and troubleshoot. And honestly, one of the first things I did when I had the issues with the printers, I went to YouTube and I typed in like things you should know for beginners or like 5 tips for new people into
how to
3D.
sell a 3D printer.
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, I lost what I was gonna say.
Same thing happened with
Uh,
me. Oh, go ahead.
so like I I have a very specific thing I want to make with this resin printer, and that's all I've been working at. I feel like I need to take a break from it,
Yes.
breathe a little because I'm getting very frustrated. I need to find some easy. I need to have small victories. Okay.
Yep.
I don't need one big victory. I need 5 small victories.
That is why I
Yeah.
printed a 20 millimeter cube because this tells you so much about your settings and stuff already. Like, how precise is it? It's exactly 20 millimeters.
Mhm.
How is it printing on each axis? All this stuff. So, like, if you were printing, just do a test print. Like, there's all sorts of things to download that's like test print. See how tightly wound it can print a circle, or it can. I know you have resin, so it's a little bit different, but print the overhangs, like what angle, like
Mhm.
take it for a spin before you try to hone in on specific things, because
Yeah.
you might not know what it can do until you see it done. Like, just download a couple of the most popular print ideas you can find. Like, I know Christian, you print that little boat? That's like the most downloaded 3D, the little sailboat or the little tugboat thing. It's a test print, but basically
I
what I'm
don't need
saying
a
is
little
Yeah.
tugboat for
a
anything.
lot of people print the same thing because it's a very good,
Test.
yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
test.
So I do think tomorrow I'm going to start with that. I'm gonna find some test prints. I'm gonna read some more stuff because this what I'm been trying to make is these polyhedral dice for like board
Ooh.
games and stuff. Like
Ooh.
yeah. So my goal is to make a set of master dice so I can put these in silicone and make my own dice with resin and color them, add stuff to them, and things like that. That's my end goal. But I need to figure out the small things before I go to that. So I think I'm going to take a break from that and reset
I want
and
to
move on.
piggyback. I want to piggyback on that too because people pay good money for those.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something too that sure it's a $200 hobby investment to start a hobby, but you can make some return on this. So the main reason I ended up getting one was
Well,
Libby
let's
pitched
talk
in.
about making money as a maker in general, like using your makings to make money, because then we can talk about Mike and his woodworking and stuff too. So that was the next thing on the list anyway. So you segued into it, like how well the earrings business, even photography is you're still a maker. Woodworking,
Yeah.
Mike, like how do you guys use making things as little side gigs, like passion projects?
So obviously my wife um, has a photography business and a
Red Lip
earring making
Photography.
business. No,
Gray.
the Gray
Oh, it's
Collective.
all the Gray Collective now, right? Or is it the photography?
That is in the modern gray clay
Yeah,
is
there you
the
go.
both have been far more successful than either of us thought they would be.
Yes, Mike.
It, It's not Red Lib Photos anymore?
No, she just changed the name.
I got rid of most of my social media, and so I haven't followed anything.
But you are following
Um,
PonderPod at PonderPod 2021 on Instagram now as of today.
Shameless plug.
Anyway, so
It's my
she's
channel.
been buying these. She's been buying these custom clay cutters, like essentially it's a cookie cutter on a smaller scale, to cut the clay that she uses to make this jewelry. And she has spent a lot of money on these cutters from people all over the country, and I think even over the world. And so I'm like, hey, if you buy me a printer, I can just make this for you. And kind of went on as a joke. And then Colin bought one. And then I realized that they're only $200. I'm like, okay, like Grandpa Joe just threw us a big check. Let's just try this. So she pitched in for my birthday present.
He's talking about President
And
Biden, by the way. That's Grandpa Joe.
Grandpa Joe.
I call him Grandpappy Biden.
And so I've made 9 custom cutters so far that I've designed through Adobe Illustrator, and then taken to Tinkercad, which is a software to 3D model something, and then taken it back to the Creality slicer software. So I've made 9 of these just this weekend, and this right here has already been at least $50 that she saved. These are shapes that she custom wanted and would have paid at least between $3 and $7 a piece, not counting shipping, not counting anything else. So
you're
that
trying
right
to
there,
justify the purchase of your printer
yeah,
for
but like
practical
I was
use,
saying,
and yeah,
right,
she's
but
setting
like
herself apart.
with his dice, like that's something that you could make, and if he can actually mold it and then make it out of resin, like you can sell those. And I know people spend a lot of money. I watched a whole video on it one time. So like that's something too. People buy these, and the ones she's been buying are 3D printed. So it's something that it might be a small return on an investment. As far as other hobbies, I know that was what you're or other things that you're making. Obviously, woodworking is a huge one. I know Mike will talk about that, but as far as like design and photography, the hardest thing is pricing yourself, which I know
Oh
all
yeah.
3 of us can attest to, whether it is freelance or photography, or it's really hard to value your own time to someone else. Like, sure, I can go spend 2 hours and take pictures for someone, and to me that might be $200, or a logo might be $25 an hour. But to the right person, that should have been $60 an hour. So some of it is pricing to your market, and some of that is a disadvantage because we live in a smaller town. People aren't expecting to pay a premium compared to like Des Moines that has a much higher population.
It's not even that so much. It's just people don't know what things cost. Like Mike, when you built
Right.
my record cabinet, my budget was like ridiculously low. Like probably just covered the supplies.
So when I made your record cabinet,
I'm saying you
your
basically
record
could have charged me at least twice what you charged me.
Oh,
in
I could have
retrospect.
easily charged. Yeah, in retrospect, I should have and could have charged you easily $500-$600 for that record cabinet.
But
He's actually going to send you an invoice now.
Yeah.
But I didn't. Okay. So a couple aspects played in that. For one, I don't know how to price my own work. I'm just not good at it because I don't give myself enough credit. I don't know if that's me being humble
No, I
or
do the same
modest
thing.
or
Yeah.
just not having the confidence in myself. 2, I had the supplies laying around. 3, you're a good friend of mine. And 4, I just wanted to make it. And
It was a different
that,
idea too. You hadn't done one like
yeah,
that before.
it
Or
was
had you?
almost
Maybe
like
you
a
had.
no. That's the one and only.
It has
thing.
so basically it's a record cabinet. I'll post a picture on here too in editing. But basically it's a cabinet, but the front door comes up and slides back, so then it houses all of the records securely because I have a cat who likes to chew on things. So I wanted them to be secure. It's got a glass pane in the front because I wanted to be able to see my records. And then the idea of it coming up and going back is based on a bookshelf that my grandparents had in their home that actually is going to be in my house if I can ever get it down to Des Moines. So that's how I came up with the idea. But when I asked you to make it for me, I was naive on what to ask you to charge me and what it should cost, because like I'm like, oh, again, me not knowing woodworking at all at that point, I now know how expensive a nice 2x4 is. I mean, it's just ridiculous for cheap wood.
You got nice wood.
Right.
Like
So
you weren't making it out of scrap wood. Like you had nice, like
no,
there's a cherry
it's made
wood panel and like it's nice
it's
stuff.
it's made out of solid wood cherry and cherry plywood. Okay. So, and I just made a cabinet for my coworker, and I priced it to be like $300. Okay.
Still cheap.
Yeah.
Still way cheap.
I wouldn't
Okay.
pay that much, but
Right. So I I think that's kind of it's almost a bit of a struggle because when you're giving a price for a client, you're it's kind of like a balance system. You don't if you start out with this high number, what you think you should charge, they're gonna like there's a good chance they're gonna walk.
yeah.
Okay, and then you lose. So you want to make something, and you want to make the thing, so you kind of bring it down,
It depends if
and
you want to
then
do it in the first place is a huge
yeah,
factor. Yeah.
right, okay. And so I also don't want to give them a price and sound super arrogant and cocky, okay. But at the same time, things cost money. Like I'm taking my time, my tools, my knowledge, and that's why you're paying so much money for it. For example, I had a lady want to make me a credenza, or no, she wanted me to make her a credenza for her TV, which is fine. And she gave me an example. She didn't want to go to IKEA or Target or Walmart to buy something that was going to fall apart in the next 3 years. Okay. And so they showed me an example of what they wanted. I pretty much modeled the exact same thing from the store and gave them a price. And it was like 4 times as much as what um the it was at like Shopko that they wanted. And I gave them that price and they got shell shocked. And then they walked. And they ghosted me. Did not a word. I'm like, okay. So people want the nice things. I think we said it earlier, but they don't know how to pay for it. They don't understand why it's so expensive.
I've got two
There's-
analogies here.
I do too. Go ahead.
Let me do my two analogies. My first one is a more serious one. So like I hate doing freelance because people always expect you to do it for little. Especially if it's not a huge project that like they know design and they're like, "Oh yeah, sure, we'll pay you." And this has happened before. I've been offered projects that I did not want at all. So they said, "Hey, how much are you going to cost?" So I upped my price considerably. I doubled my price. And they're like, "Okay, we'll pay you." I'm like, "Okay." So then after the project took much longer than it needed to because of the client, I told him like, "Hey, just so you know, like we're already at this dollar amount. If you're good to keep going, I'm all for it. Whatever. I've got the time and I'm glad to help, but it's you're paying me still." They're like, "Oh yeah, no problem." There have been other times where like if a friend comes to me and asks for something that takes me literally 5 or 10 minutes, I'm not going to typically charge them. I probably should out of principle because otherwise that same person's going to come back every time and bug you, or at least have them buy me a beer or something, whatever. But as a designer, especially with freelance, it is hard to judge your own talents because you're the most critical of your own talents. So like to segue into the second analogy, you wouldn't go into a tattoo artist and be like, "Hey, I want this bald eagle chest piece, whatever, but I've only got $100." They're not going to say, "Let's do it." They might. I've seen a couple
Yeah.
tattoo shops in your guys' area. But like if you go to a nice tattoo artist,
The tetanus is free.
if you go to a nice tattoo artist like the wonderful person who's done all mine lately, they're going to tell you that, yeah, great, but we're probably going to have to do that over a couple of different appointments. It's probably going to cost
$100 each time.
$600 to $800, whatever, $100 an hour. Like you have to expect that. It's my older brother is a designer too, as Christian knows, because he is also my brother. He's also my older brother, but not the brother I'm talking about. Anyway, he always said like you wouldn't go to a mechanic and say, "I'll give you $20 to change my oil," when really it's going to cost $40. Like there's no other industry really besides creatives where you get to try to pick your price for the service you're getting. Like, we're a purely bartered industry, like especially freelance, one-offs, whatever, unless you're super popular, like, yeah, we'll pay you whatever. Like, there's tattoo artists that can charge $1,000 for a consultation. Like, that's when you get to that point. There's also tattoo
Mm-hmm.
artists that'll say, yeah, I'll do that chest piece for $100. So it's very hard to get to that point where you're like, I'm a professional. You have to treat me as a professional, and you're going to pay me as a professional, because that's something that we just don't necessarily see ourselves as at all.
So I'm gonna ask you guys a question.
Do it.
Do you do you
The
think,
garbage podcast.
do you think that we don't do you think we do that because we don't want to offend or upset our client?
Depends if you want to
Because
do the project or not.
right, okay. So I feel like this is a whole society off-topic thing, but like our society, we don't want to offend people. We don't want to upset people. We want everyone to be happy. Sometimes I kind of feel like that plays a part in it, to where I subconsciously, and then later I find out that that's why I did it. Like, I don't want to make you upset at the price that I'm giving you.
That's Iowa nice for you too, though. I mean, if we lived in any other state than Iowa, if we lived in Los Angeles and you were making tables and record cabinets and stuff, you'd probably be able to charge way more, depending on if there's a bunch of other people doing it, competition, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
since we're in an area where it's not like there's a billion graphic designers and a bunch of options, like, I end up with people saying, "Oh yeah, you can do it." Like, yeah, I can. Which animal was that? Was that a dog? I saw that.
A child.
A child. I think we're just kind of victims of our own circumstances. Like, just where we live affects
Some of
what
it-
we do.
I think a lot of it is self-confidence, like to stand by it. I've had people who I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be like $25 an hour. I did a website, and in the end, I ended up making it sound like I actually gave them a good deal because I was uncomfortable with saying, all right, you owe me $1,500. Like, it's something that took me that amount of time, and that's exactly what I earned. But it's just that like cringy feeling of, okay, what if they don't think I'm worth that? Like, people
Mm-hmm.
don't have the option to not pay you. Like,
Yes,
you
they
can literally
do.
like,
No, they do.
well,
So my
they
story.
do,
Let me give my
but like
story.
that's where like Libby in her professional life had to do contracts. They're like legally written contracts
Yeah.
that she has purchased from other photographers to protect herself. Like, now she's obviously adding a pandemic clause because people were like, well, I want my money back for this. And like, that's a different thing. But I think it's the feeling of having to stick to what you think you're worth, whether they're going to be happy with it or not.
You're rationalizing why you should be charging this person money.
Right.
Yeah. But even if you can rationalize it, and you can justify it and give them an invoice and say like, hey, it took me an hour to find this font. Like, you still have to pay me for that. I still get paid to go take a bathroom break, even if I'm doing freelance. Like, I'm on the clock for you right now. And that includes the research to come up with this idea, to develop it, and then to send it to you for proofs. Like, any meeting we have, like I did freelance for a church that
Consultation,
Libby was
yeah.
working for. I charged them for every one of the meetings. I'm like, if you want to come to me and say, hey, this is what's next, I'm working for you right then. Like, you have to know how to value that time too, because it's not all just sitting here doodling and mocking up a logo. It is the whole process that you are paying for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some people are okay with that. But again, it just depends on what people are expecting. And ultimately, they'll get what they pay for, and they'll probably end up having to hire you 2 years later anyway.
Two issues.
Yeah.
There's two issues with that. One, people don't know what a logo costs, and the other thing is people don't know how long it takes to make a logo. So there's that fits in with woodworking too. Like, I don't know how much cherry wood is. Like, I have zero idea, let alone how to build something out of it that will stand and I won't lose limbs. But my story with the freelance is a friend of the podcast. She might be listening. Hello. Reached out to me and said, hey, somebody I know is looking for a new logo for a photography business that they're doing. Are you interested? You were the person that came to mind. I'm like, sure, I'll help them out. What do they have in mind? What's their budget? Blah, blah, blah. Their budget was $40. And I'm like, okay, I think that's about like an hour of my time for this. I think it'll maybe take me about an hour. I have a couple of ideas already. They gave me one concept that they liked that they literally could have purchased for
$25.
$15 on this website that they sent the link from. But I'm like, okay, that'll be like an hour of my time. I'm glad to help. I think I have an idea that would work really well, fit this brand, fit this name, whatever. So one day I spent an hour, literally almost exactly an hour of my time, presented 4 solid concepts. I thought they were great logos. Christian saw them, my older brother saw them. We often like share ideas and get feedback from each other. I sent them to my friend to share back with her friend, which again, maybe I should have just dealt with the person directly, but the person responded and said, "Oh, I thought maybe they'd be a little bit more designed than that. I didn't know it would take so long. I didn't know it would take so long to design something like this. And I understand if they need more time and whatever." I'm like, first of all, what? Second of all, this is a way more professional logo than what you have currently or what they now have. Basically, I never heard from her again. Didn't use my logo. Didn't get paid. On one hand, I'm like, somebody owes me $40. On the other hand, I'm like, I don't even care about that $40. I would eat that $40 in front of that person and be like, my logo is better than yours, and now your logo sucks. So, I
And
mean,
now my logo costs $80.
but the person just didn't know what a logo cost and didn't know how long it would take. Well, you can't have $40 as a budget for anything unless you're going to buy beer. like that is not a budget. You get what you pay for. And a $14 stock design versus even $40 an hour for a custom logo that you're the only person that has professional thought put into it. It's not just farmed up together and sold. Like, there's value in that. It's no different than going to Target and buying the TV stand I have downstairs or Mike building one just like it. Like, it's just, yours is, yeah, they might be TV stands, both of them, but like one has way more time and effort and professional opinion and decisions put into it. And that bugged me. I was not happy. And so then a couple of weeks later, I went to that Instagram page and I was like, oh, this is a new logo, and it was not mine and it was not good. But like,
you don't seem bitter at all.
Am I supposed to message her and be like, dumpster fire? No, can't do that. Do I want to? Yes, but I also didn't get paid. Well, that's, yeah. I won't do that.
That brings up 2 things that I had written down from a little bit ago. The luxury of having an extra hobby that we can make money off of, be it a freelance situation or a for fun situation. We have the luxury that it's not our full-time job. So
no, we don't.
Hold on. So yes, you do design professionally for your full-time job.
Correct.
But we don't have to settle with pricing because it is not our full-time job. If it was our livelihood and you had to like kiss everyone's ass and say, okay, I'll be $25 an hour because I think I can get enough business to make that sustainable, whatever. Like, you can say, you know what, it's $50. And if they say no, screw it. You don't need that person's money because you don't have to do that. It's literally just an extra like 3D printing for fun hobby, throw money at, whatever. The other thing is like when you were talking about when you made Colin's cabinet, and realistically he should have charged way more. There are a couple times
and won't.
There are a couple times where I think working for free or working for cheap is necessary, and I think it's a good thing. Not that you let your friends take advantage of that, but I know especially in photography, or let's call it anything that you can post on Instagram, anything that you're going to use for marketing. Like, I know a couple of the tables that I've seen that Mike has made were for like charity auction type things. And it's a great way to market yourself, and it's a great way to do that and like to show off something you've made. It's also a great way to practice your skill. But like with photography, I know Libby's taking pictures of people for free just to have the marketing from them, or something I really want to do I've always wanted to do is dive further into photography and videography, but not in the aspects that Libby does. So like,
But like
I do think that,
but like with Libby, like usually she utilizes family. She's not like, people aren't just coming to their appointments like, oh, can we be one of those free marketing families? Like it's predetermined. Like if you were gonna get
right.
into video, you're gonna call me and say, will you come up,
Hey, I want to make a video. Right.
come back
Yeah.
home, and
No,
can we mess around and try some stuff versus like,
she does a lot of giveaways and has been a part of a lot of giveaways for her earring business as well as the photography. She actually put together the whole wedding that they gave away to a COVID, um, to a family who had a worker who was an essential worker. That was actually a really big deal that she put together. But um, so I do think that it's okay to undervalue yourself in those situations as you start. But like, I think now, like, I've seen a lot of mic stuff. We have a lot of mic stuff. We have a headboard, we have a bench, we
is
have
that
picture frames and stuff.
is that headboard still in your basement?
It's on my wall.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was like, what the heck?
Wasn't it
No,
in
it's literally my
storage at your
bedroom.
other house, at your apartment for a while?
Yeah, because we
Oh,
couldn't
wasn't
hang it on the wall
attached.
because
Yeah.
it had to be
Yeah.
mounted. And then Mike came over and helped me
Mike does
mount it
good
to this
work.
wall.
I was just giving Christian shit.
I was like, no, it's literally attached. It weighs 160 pounds. That thing is not going anywhere.
Remember that bonfire you had last summer?
We built the
That
fence.
that bench started it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's
But
something that I try to tell myself all the time is I have a full-time job. Anything I want to do on the side, like I have done some photography, like I don't have to price that to live off of it. I'm literally pricing it to literally
right,
throw it away at
to buy a
probably a
3D
PlayStation
printer.
game or something stupid,
Yeah.
or
Hmm.
to buy a 3D printer. So it is okay
It's
sometimes, but like that's when you can take out like to me the expense of taking pictures is my time and only my time and then the time to edit. Whereas like woodworking, you're gonna have expenses for materials and stuff. But I do think that's the hardest part for me. And it's the hardest it has always been the hardest part is what am I worth to them and how can I compromise in the middle to get enough of what I wanted, but also make them happy because I don't know if they're going to be happy when I tell them how much they owe me.
hmm
But that also is being honest up front too. So now when somebody says like, "Oh, how much would this cost?" I'll be like, "This much." That's up to this point, kind of like you said. There is a threshold where you have to say, "Okay, your time's expired. Insert more coins, or I'm bouncing," because you can't just give them free stuff unless you're starting off or using it for marketing,
that's
or they owe
that's
you.
that's something that I might start integrating myself. When somebody asks me to make something, like obviously I need the money for materials up front. I'm not using my money to go buy your materials.
Right.
Okay.
Then it's a
And
liability.
then it's a
I
liability.
think I
So
did. I think
now,
I did that with you with a record cabinet. I'm pretty sure I gave you some up
mhm,
front so you could get going, and then yeah.
$5,
right.
it's nothing.
It's
I bought
fine.
you Subway.
Yeah. So I think that's something that I can integrate into myself whenever I have time to, or if somebody comes asking for something to be made. Like, hey, I'm going to charge this many hours or this dollar per hour. And then if I get to that point, I'm like, hey, we've hit that threshold, like you said, we need to keep going. And I honestly never thought of it like that.
My first
Yeah,
question is
it's
always, what is your budget? Well, not always first.
Same here.
What is your
because
concept, and then what is your budget, or like what are your
if they say,
expectations?
"Hey, I want a record cabinet that looks like Collins, but my budget's $2,000," all of a sudden your pricing has changed, and I
Hmm.
think that's okay because I know with our older brother, you can charge Ma and Pa donut shop $100 for a logo, but if that is Apple and they're saying, "Hey, I want a logo," you're gonna charge them $1,000. Like
Hmm.
it's okay to scale your pricing, and I know there's always an exception. I know with Libby's photography stuff, every year it changes because obviously she's getting better and more popular. So with demand, it's also going to change. But I think it's totally okay to modify your pricing to your audience, but also to what they think it's worth. Because if that person actually knows what you're worth versus the person who,
Yeah, kind of though. Like you shouldn't ever like inflate your prices because you know someone has money. But if you're doing like the caliber of stuff that you're gonna do for somebody like Apple's too drastic. Let's just say like State Farm. I don't know. Something that's like national. It's got a brand, whatever. But if you're gonna put together a brochure for State Farm versus putting together a brochure for Casey's gas station, like
A local camp.
yeah, Casey's isn't a
Casey's
great
is
example because they're like the
no.
fifth biggest chain in the
Yeah,
Yeah.
country.
they're nationally traded.
For okay, then say for like the Living History Farms or something that's here in Des Moines area, like
Great example.
it's
Owned by
just
the Koch brothers.
it's just very different expectations. Like you're gonna have less resources. You're probably not gonna have as much time. I mean, there's so many more variables.
But you would know that. You would know that going into it. Like that's again where I think there are exceptions to the rule and how much do you want to work on the project. Like I'm not saying you're going to screw over someone because they have more money, but
if you have the caliber to do Apple level productions, you're not going to waste your time doing Living History Farms brochures unless you're really into reenacting the 1800s. Like,
unless Living History Farms is going to pay is what I'm saying.
well, yeah, but they're going to have to upscale. You're not going to downscale necessarily for something that you don't really want to do unless it's a passion. Then you might just donate your time because you're already making money with these major clients. My issue,
Right.
doing this for a living, it kind of stymies my whole creative thing. Like when I get home, like the 3D printer helps me. Again, this isn't why you should buy a 3D printer, but that's just my newest thing. It's no different than buying a PlayStation or doing fixer up or stuff. Like I need a creative outlet when I come home that's not me doing graphic design on a computer all the time. Yes, I designed the PonderPod logo. Yes, I did this whole layout that you guys can't see right now, but it's there. The little animations I messed around with and had fun figuring out, but like I need things to do or I do nothing. And the things that I like to do happen to be creative. But when you do creative stuff also for a full-time job, you don't want to do that same creative stuff, even as a paid freelance thing sometimes. Like I hate freelance because that's just more stuff that like more design I have to do to get paid, just like my normal job. But it's like added pressure because you're hand holding for people who don't know what they're doing. Like my job knows that they're going to pay me every day for the job that I've done and the jobs I'm going to do and the new projects I'm going to do. But like they don't pay me what I would charge a freelance client hourly. I mean, that's you can make way more money doing freelance, and some people do that. But that creativity sometimes comes to a halt. Like after, like Mike, when you said you had been making the dice, and you had just been making the dice over and over, and like you've been staring at it too long. That's like my job most days. Like you can only do so much in a given day before your eyes are tired and your brain's tired and you have no creative juices left. You just have to kind of wait. And then the next day, you'll hop right back into it and it will just come to you. It'll just happen. It'll just be easy.
Here's the craziest thing about making things is your ideas or your eureka moment comes at the most inopportune time.
Yeah.
We keep referencing your record cabinet. I had no idea how I was gonna design and build the mechanism to lift your door. It literally came to me laying in bed, getting ready to fall asleep. Because your brain starts to slow down and it starts to wash all of the complicated and stressful things of the day, and it just starts thinking by itself,
Yeah.
and it creates that moment. Okay, and I think like it's your release.
Yeah.
Making is your release. Okay, now you could get at home after a long day and sit on your phone, look at Instagram, look at TikTok,
I do that
watch
too.
a show. Okay, granted, there's a time and a place for it because I do it too. But I don't know if you get the same feeling, but if I sit down and I start looking at Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and all of a sudden it's been hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, man,
You feel like shit.
yeah, I feel worthless. Like I could have done something, but instead I'm staring at my phone.
Yeah.
See, and making it keeps you going. It gives you something else to think about.
And that's I'm not gonna say important. That's key though, because you don't always have to be making things. Just thinking about it is
Oh,
good for you. You're doing these brain teasers in your head. Like I still haven't got this thing undone. I did it like 50 times the night I printed it, but uh oh, did I get it? No, I suck. Anyway,
nope.
uh thinking about it though is a big thing. Cool thing with these new printers is they take a long time. So it's okay
Mm-hmm.
to just set it up and let it go. I was having issues letting it go, and then it would turn into a blob of melted plastic. So my creative solution is to use one of the security cameras that I had in my old house. So now I'm just going to position it on the printer. I'm going to fix it to the printer so I can check it from downstairs. If I am watching TV, I can just pull it up on my phone and check to see how the printer's doing,
Yeah.
which is brilliant, I think. But just thinking about all the designs, the ideas, how you can make something, how you will design something. It happens to me a lot at work. It happened to me literally yesterday. I was working on a design. I hated it. It didn't really matter
Mm-hmm.
what was put together. It just had to be, excuse me, it had to be done pretty quick. And so I got to work this morning. I had made 3 concepts yesterday. I got to work this morning, and I'm like, I'm going to look at this. I think I have a couple ideas. Let's try it. But before that, the person that I was designing it for came in. They're like, I like that one. That was already done. I'm like, great. So part of it, yes, I probably could have just shown them the concepts. And I do that a lot. I don't like to
Mm-hmm.
say, let me go and give me 5 hours and I'll give you a design. I hate that. I'd rather be like, this is the idea that I have, sketch it out. Great, looks cool. Okay. And then spend an hour putting together a concept, show it to them, and say, okay, do you think we're on the right track here? I like to do that with freelance stuff too, like little sneak peeks, because if you're wrong, a lot of that comes down to insecurity. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
wrong or they hate it, it's their dollar. Like they're paying you per hour. So if they don't like it, you're kind of just screwing yourself over, and it's going to be much better to make sure they're happy along the way. But again, a lot of that's just my insecurity saying like, oh, they're going to
Mm-hmm.
hate it before I even show it to them.
Right.
But that leads to burnout
Right.
too. If you spend forever staring at one design, you just got to turn it off and do something else and then come back to it. So having
You
these
got to do.
different
Yeah.
having these different creative outlets is awesome. I have a vinyl cutter too that I haven't used in probably, I'd say, at least a year and a half. I've had so many ideas of stuff I want to do, cool stuff for my wall, cool stuff for my computer case, my car, all these ideas. But now I'm really excited. We talked about this a little bit the other day. The idea of combining my 3D printer with woodworking, like that desk
Mm-hmm.
that I sent you today, is super cool. You could add resin inlays. You could add decals, like the stickers. You could use them as stencils. Like there is so much you can do if you just kind of think outside of the box. And I feel like that's what I'm challenging myself to do because again, yeah, I printed all this stuff that somebody else designed. I couldn't design this thing if I had to. I know you can't really see that. All
There we
right.
go.
Uh,
So what you're doing is you're learning from somebody else's success.
I have to
Okay.
start somewhere. Yeah.
Right. Your end goal isn't. You're not just going to copy somebody's designs for the rest of your time with your 3D printer.
Right. I'm not going to
Okay.
just be like, yeah, I sell David busts on Etsy.
Yeah. Right. I mean,
I
that's not
could.
exciting. Doing somebody else's work isn't exciting. So, and that's my goal too. Is I want to figure out how this works once, and then I also want to teach myself how to design products on the computer.
Yeah.
That's one of my other end goals is to know how to make something from scratch. Take my calipers, uh, measure what I need, design it, sketch it, yeah, and then print out a physical form. So I think everybody can be creative. Okay. Now, do I think everybody can be the exact same sort of creative? No.
Absolutely
Like
not.
So most people have some form of creativity, but I think you need to want to be creative to succeed at being creative. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think you're just gonna be creative like without trying.
One of the things
It's
one of the things I say a lot, especially to my boss who is a fundraiser, I'll say, "Do you like this?" And she go, "Oh yeah, I do." Or sometimes I'll get the, "I like it." I'm like, "Okay, well, you might not be a designer, but what is it you don't like about it?" And then go from there. Like, you don't have to be a designer
Mhm.
to know something does not look right or look good.
Mhm.
Sometimes your opinion is wrong, but
You're entitled to your wrong
you're
opinion.
entitled to an opinion. And if you're my boss and you say, no, change that color, I'm going to change that color. But like, you don't have to have this like specifically honed in mind of years of training and professionalism. Like, you don't have to have that necessarily to say, Mike, I think that leg is a little too short versus those other three. Like, that could happen.
Right, but if you're like, oh, I don't really understand why you decided to do a tapered leg instead of a straight leg. Like, to me,
Right.
I
Yeah.
think that's the artist's influence onto it. But I
But they
think
would
you're
never
right. I
say.
think
But they would never say that if they came across it in a store and they were looking to buy one. They'd be like,
right,
"Oh,
they
I
would
don't
just
like
not
that
buy
one.
it.
I'd buy this one." Right.
Right.
We're just in
Um,
the custom business where you're making something one of a kind for a one of a kind person.
so this sounds kind of weird, but I like showing a prototype or a design to somebody that's not creative
Yeah.
because most I would say most people aren't like us.
True.
Most people aren't thinking through their day what they want to make at the end of the day. Most people, they just want to get done with the day. They want to go home. They want to relax. They want to go to sleep and then start over. So if this, let's say 75%, I don't know if that's high, low. So that means 75% of the people that are going to see this aren't going to notice your nitty gritty details
Yes.
and the things you know aren't perfect.
Yep.
Okay. So you show that person, and there's a good chance you're going to blow their mind,
Yeah.
even though that you can see this, that, and that mistake.
I
Okay.
I literally hung stuff up in the downstairs the other day, and we had people over that night. The first thing I literally said, "Yeah, the right one is an eighth of an inch too high, but you probably didn't notice that." I'm like, "Why did I even say that?" Now they're like, "Shit, you're
Yeah.
right. That one is too
Yeah.
high." But you're
That's a
right.
If
concept.
They never would have noticed it.
That's that's a concept I can't grasp though. Is like the fact that some people can't think creatively or at work. I constantly talk to people. I'm like, oh yeah, you could just make that. They're like, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, you don't know how to like get a Sharpie and or some like tape or
To make
I'm like,
it,
what do you mean you don't know how to do it?
but
And some people cannot problem solve to the point of actually making something.
I don't
And even if you want to take it that way, like just copy something someone else has made and it's still a creative process.
I don't think they even have to make it though. If they can say, I mean, if they don't like it or they're fine with one that they can just buy, I think it'd still work. I just don't think, as Mike said, you have somebody that doesn't know design look at a design. That's not like handing a book to somebody who doesn't know how to read. Like, this is still based on their logic and their
You can still have an
style. Their
opinion.
Yeah, it's more opinionated versus like you just lack a skill. You lack the knowledge for the specifics, but you can still give a elementary analysis of whatever's in front of you.
right.
It's something I struggle with because when I sit and watch Libby edit her pictures and stuff, I'll see her remove like the stray tree branch or something from the back and from the right angle. I'm like, I can still see it. She's like, no one else is even gonna know it was there. So like they're
Yeah.
not gonna think that the grass looks funny because they're not looking at the grass. I'm like, but the grass looks funny. The grass is suspicious. It cannot stay like that. And
Right.
she always gets mad, but it's some of that is just the nature of the beast being a detail oriented person. Like we're looking for the things that seem off so then we can point out that they seem off because It's not even meant to be like an arrogant thing, but it comes off that way because you're just like, but you could have just done this one more thing to fix it. Like, why
Yeah.
can it not be right?
I do that with
And
Photoshop a
then the
lot.
peer.
I do that with Photoshop a lot where I'll cut something out and I think it looks a little weird because I've been staring at a sidewalk for too long. I'm like, the lines don't meet. But then if I show it to somebody else, they're like, what lines? You can't even tell that there are lines. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I just wasted too much time. Like you just
But
have
you
to
paid
worry.
me for it.
But you have to worry about what really matters. Like, is the main subject still there? Is your eye drawn to this region for some reason? Like, has you screwed it up so bad? Like, there's just, you don't have to nitpick over everything. Some of us do. We all probably do, honestly, over stupid things. Like I was just looking at this printed cube. I'm like, why is there such a weird little line down the middle of it? Like I clearly did something wrong. So now we can troubleshoot it and make it better so we don't have to worry about it next time or take up our own time. But it doesn't
Or
matter.
you can move on and go do something else.
Yeah.
Well, no, because if it's going to affect other stuff down the road and you're going to have selling stuff, then like it's just fine tune stuff on your own time and make it easier for the next time you make something and move on. Like with the earrings and the cookie cutters, like you're going to make a ton of shapes. You're not like handcrafting one of a kind shapes. You're designing one of a kind shapes, which is cool. But it's not
Right.
like same with when I do a brochure. I have 5 brochures I've designed and I just do different iterations of each one to whatever extent. That's kind of cool.
It's avocado.
It's avocado. Thanks.
Oh,
The
that's
interesting-
amazing.
Okay, the next thing.
It's not actually an avocado, but it's to print or to design these too, like to think in a completely different way. And I had to learn how to do the inverse, to do the piece to connect the little cutout and stuff. Like it's so fun and it's so satisfying. And I sat here and watched the UFC fights on Saturday night and just designed a bunch of these for her. And again, that little tiny micro victory of successfully figuring it out didn't take a lot of time, but again, it's going to save her a lot of money and it's going to take her business to the next level because now we can do like really funky stuff. But it's just so fun.
Okay, a couple more things that I want to address because we're almost done here. This is just a quick answer for either of you or both of you. Do you feel like you're more creative outside of work because you don't have a creative adult job?
Oh, I 100% have a creative
Yes.
adult job. So no.
Okay, Mike, do you do woodworking because you don't have you're not in a creative professional field?
Yeah. I mean, my job's full menial labor.
Right. Like
So-
you're a creative person, but you don't get to express that 40 hours a week.
No.
I guess I am creative in a different way than I would be outside of work at work. I'm trying to focus my energy more on things that I want to do outside of work. And that's actually a whole different podcast subject as far as like finding inspiration in the right things and like letting that steer you towards the things that you want to spend your time on, be that a podcast or a video game for the night. Like, you know, picking and choosing, especially with having kids, like time management and picking and choosing how you want to spend your time is getting more and more difficult for me because there's just too many things I'm interested in.
Same.
Agreed.
And so that'd probably be a really good
I
episode
literally
too.
came home from work and I was like, should I start this book that I've wanted to read for a couple of years? There's like several books. Should I work on podcast stuff? Should I try to fix my 3D printer? Or should I play Tony Hawk Pro Skater for the 1,000th time and then watch a stand-up special that I've already seen 5 times? I did the last two.
Yeah.
I didn't even know we were going to record this podcast until this morning. So thank you guys for kind of shifting around and making this happen. So this leads to my next question. How important to you is having a community around the stuff you do? I think Mike and Christian and I, the 3 of us, our little friend group here, we're friends because we have similar interests. I mean, just in general. But like, Mike,
Yeah.
how many texts and questions did you get from me and Christian both when we're like, woodworking is cool, and now we're like, 3D printing is cool. We have a group chat, text
Go to
thread.
hell, woodworking.
We have a Snapchat group, but like, we've shared a lot of important information, a lot of different struggles we've each had, some troubleshooting. I mean, how do you feel community plays a part in your hobbies, your creative hobbies?
I think community is huge.
Yeah.
because at work, all of the people I work with are kind of a typical demographic. Okay, they like sports, they work, they um, do other kind of side things. None of those people are super creative.
More
Like,
blue collar.
yes, they're very blue collar. I have a pretty open viewpoint. I'll think about everything, give it the time of day, and I can still decide whether I like it or not. But I don't have that release where everything is starting to build up in here, and it's almost like a mental health topic. But it gets to a point to
It's
where
my it's my next
nobody,
question.
I have nobody to talk to about it. And now I have you two, who you both share very similar interests.
Yeah.
And now I have that release. Like, it's like the floodgates are open. I'm designing this. I'm doing cool nerd shit.
Yes.
Okay,
Exactly.
and
Cool nerd
I
shit.
can't go. Yeah, I can't go to my four coworkers and be like, guys, I'm trying to design on the computer this item to put on a resin printer. Success, and they're just gonna look at me like,
What's a computer?
why would why would you get a resin printer? That's dumb. Why don't you just go buy it?
Yeah.
No, and I've got that with the types of books I listen to and the music I listen to. There's a few things where I don't have many other people like that, but this is awesome. You need to find somebody that shares your same interests,
Yeah.
so you can have that release.
And part of that is like it goes back to competition. Like I want to make cooler shit than Christian. Like straight
Right.
up. I
Yeah.
I mean I want to do it on a
Yeah.
level playing field. Yeah. I don't want to be like, oh, well, I spent more money on this, and this. Like, no. Like, what can we do with the basics? Like, let's use our
Mhm.
imaginations. It's like what I said with the Legos. What can you build with these pieces without instructions? And if it's
Right.
nothing, then you need to think a little bit harder. You need to try a different method. You got to do something. But that keeps me going. Like, I literally, if I knew we weren't going to talk about this stuff tonight, I'd probably still be downstairs playing Tony Hawk or watching Netflix and probably wouldn't have touched my 3D printer. But because we talked about it several times throughout the day, I'm like, I got to fix this thing. Like, these
Mhm.
guys are making cool stuff. I want to make cool stuff. Like, it pushes you a
Well,
little bit, but also you can share that information and you might save somebody else a bunch of hassles or they just didn't read the back of the box.
was it yesterday or today? I can't remember that you were having troubles with your printer, and so you're trying to figure out what it was. And like Christian could have been like, "Oh, well, all my stuff's working. I don't know what your problem is." And then let's say my stuff was working, and we just let you fend for yourself. No, we all kind of gave constructive ideas. Like, you guys have the same printer, you're trying to do the same thing, but Christian's using this and you're using this. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a common denominator. Let's focus on that. We're bettering each other so that way when the next step comes, we can all at the same time.
Yeah, and plus,
I
like
will.
if I spent the time and found a good YouTube video, then I shared that with you guys, so you could be like, oh, well,
Mm-hmm.
I can refer back to this, or this is a good channel, or whatever. But community, I think I need a community rooting for me, and part of that goes for like self esteem, because you guys could be like, oh wow, that's really cool that you made that. Like you probably could have made it too. You might not have thought of it. Like the cheese head thing. Like, yeah, that's kind of stupid. But if that thing's hanging right here on the wall behind me, that's gonna look pretty cool. So I gotta figure out how to do that. But like community around gaming was a huge thing for me. That's how I met a bunch of the friends that have even been on the podcast. Triple XP team, Mike and Shane. They're on episode 1. And
Shout out.
shout out. I've been on several of their episodes. I'm the unofficial third host who fills in when the others are busy and I have no life, so I'm always available. Shout out Triple XP. But like I met them through gaming, and then through gaming, I said I was going to do a podcast. That's how Cheese FM started, which was just it was me streaming and being stupid. And then that turned into this podcast, and like now we're talking about 3D printing that like it's there's just so many things that snowball from just having some people around you. I mean, it's not just a friend group necessarily, but people with like interests, they don't have to be your friends, but that helps. Like to me, that's a huge deal. Christian, what about you and
Mhm.
communities?
I th- I think I struggle with communities aside from this. Like we have our individual friend groups, like every group text that you have, you could call it community. Like we have one for video games, we have one for movies.
Packers.
Obviously, right, for the Packers, we have one for, we'll call that sports in general. We have one
Says the
for
Vikings fan. When was the last time you won a Super Bowl, Vikings fan?
Shut up.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it.
different podcasts on mental health. Um, so I think I really struggle with community for the things I want to spend my time on.
Hmm.
And that's something like I look at my Instagram and some days I get so pissed off at my Instagram because it's just full of stupid stuff. But I'm the one who follows this everything. So like some days I'm like, all right, cool, all the space shit. It's all like NASA and SpaceX and all these wannabes who just take cool pictures with telescopes. Like, all right, this is awesome. But then I'm like, okay, but I want to start getting into photography and I want to someday quit my job and work for myself and do all this stuff and like join my wife's business and do video and all this fun stuff.
That's
But
what you
like
want to do for a job is work with Libby?
it's been floated as an idea. I don't really know
Sounds
yet.
terrible.
What a terrible idea.
But like but if I'm not seeing inspiration from like what other videographers and stuff are doing or
True.
what I could achieve, like strive for, I feel like then I just don't get motivated to do it. And so that's where like I feel like I need to sit down and make a hi JJ. Um, I need to make a list of things that I actually want to spend my time on and realistic goals of how to get there. And with 3D printing, it was literally, hey, buy this, figure out the first step, which Colin found out 2 weeks too late, and then start making stuff. And then like there's troubleshooting in between there, but that's not how it's going to work for anything else. Or if you want to make money or get good at something, and so I feel like I need to surround myself with more people and maybe cut out some other people who just like we all have those friends from high school that we love and it's so fun to hang out with, but they're not the first person you're going to call because they don't share enough interest with you, or they're not going to be like,
Hmm.
hey, yeah, let's go do that today. And I don't have enough people around who are like, hey, yeah, I need to go do something physical. Does anyone want to come play tennis? Or, hey, does anyone want to do this? And some of that is also probably back to the self-esteem of like it's so weird to invite people to do things whether you want to do it or not. It's just uncomfortable to be like, hey, do you want to do this?
I don't think that's
Because
true.
then I think it's uncomfortable to ask the first time unless you know like, hey, I know you play tennis, do you want to go play tennis sometime?
Well, that's
Because then it's
you
like
don't
you're
just ask
it's like,
strangers if they want to play tennis.
maybe
I,
I need to.
I think this is a good topic for another podcast.
Yeah, I think you could probably spend a whole making it friends as an adult
That's
would be a
literally
Mhm.
great podcast.
I have that down. We've touched on it though several times with the COVID episode, the first episode we talked about just because they live in the UK, that's 4,000 miles away from here. So like the fact that I met these people that have a lot of similar interests, similar sense of humor, like that's crazy. It's not like fate or destiny or anything maybe. It was
Right,
just
but
happenstance,
add
but
the dimensions of finding people
Hmm.
with shared interests or, having kids, like,
well that's why
you have
community is
even less
important.
time.
Yeah.
Right, that's why I'm saying I need to find more community because my interests are getting more and more narrow, and I feel like, especially in our town, I may or may not find some of those things.
Yeah.
And creatives are the ones though that push it. Like with Libby, she does the photography, she does the earrings. You very well could join her with as a second wedding shooter, as a videographer. We talked one point about doing like one of those photo booth things. You could always do custom little 3D keychains. I don't know, but like you could do all sorts of stuff. You could get a Cricut or a Silhouette cameo and make those super popular plexiglass wedding entry welcome signs. Like you guys could do so much, and you already have the tools. You just have to think about how can you be like an all-in-one wedding package. Like what can you
Well, and
offer?
that's the dedication of time too. Like picking and narrowing in on something, and that's what I'm struggling with so hard because there are things that I haven't done for 3 or 4 years that I want to do so bad, like go fishing. When was the last time you went fishing? I love fishing, but it's been probably 3 or 4 years. Same with tennis. Like I've lost like the main friends that we had that would play tennis with us have moved away and they've moved too far away
They're
from me to
my
be able to play
neighbors
with them.
now.
Yeah, and so like I don't get to go play tennis and now I do nothing. So, like finding those communities or eliminating others, I think is kind of a big thing for me with my adult life and balance as far as what I actually want to spend time on,
All right.
Yeah.
creative or not.
All right. My last question is, how do you plan to pass your creativity onto your kids? Whether it's furniture or it's making sure you spend the time to show them how to do things, build forts, whatever. That's a hard question, but like what you probably haven't thought about it, Christian, because your kid's like not even a year old. But
No, I've definitely thought of
Yeah.
it.
how are you gonna pass?
Um,
How are you gonna pass your imagination, your maker inside of you on?
so I'll kickstart this one since my kids are a little older. Um, First off, I I don't want to force them into anything.
Right, of
Okay.
course.
So forcing them into something because I like it could push them even farther away.
Right.
Okay. So um there's a lot of things I really like, and I really wanted Grayson to like them a lot. The more I push stuff, I'm questioning, am I pushing it because I like it, or am I pushing it because I think he likes it? Okay. So I'm letting him figure out what he likes, and then I think because I'm naturally creative, I think that's just gonna rub off on him. Like he's gonna start picking up things, and so is Lily, that he's going to start doing because they see the way I do it.
Yeah.
Like if I just keep going out and just buying this new thing because I need a fix, they're going to do the same thing. But if I try to
Yeah.
make something, like Grayson wants to make it, or like this summer when it was nice out, no, it wasn't this summer, it was this winter. I was doing some stuff in the basement and he wanted to copy me, so we made him a workbench and got him a few tools. And if he shows interest, then I'll full heartedly go for it. But I'm just kind of like the osmosis effect is what I'm kind of trying to teach my kids.
You should
So
have bought Collins tools.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a brand new table saw. How do you? So maybe a better question is, how do you make sure your kid stays creative and uses their imagination? Like, even if they don't have the same interests as you,
Hmm.
like how do you like do you limit screen time? Do you say make something? Do you say draw me a picture? Like how I have no I mean this is a genuine question because I have no idea what the answer is, but how because I know kids these days do not have the imagination of the
Uh-uh.
kids back in the day, like us.
Um,
I think
I'll
it's
ask.
different though.
I was gonna bring this up earlier. Um, so I'll ask him questions like, "Well, how would you do this?" I'm like, "What would you do this way?" Yada yada yada.
Is he
Like
into
I'll ask.
Minecraft and Legos and stuff?
Yeah. So I was gonna bring this up earlier. I think that Minecraft of this generation is Legos of our generation.
Yep.
Okay.
Besides the fact that
So,
Legos are pretty much more popular now than they ever have been. Those premium sets, are you
right,
kidding me?
right. But
Yeah.
I think
Digital Legos.
it's digital Legos. Okay. Um, so I think their creativity is different than our creativity. Like they can still be creative, but it's not particularly our creativity.
Right.
So I think we got to take that with a grain of salt because
I
we
mean,
obviously grew up different.
Yeah.
your daughter will probably know how to code by the time she's like 10, which is something we didn't have access to. Like
Hmm.
STEM is such a big focus now because obviously as technology evolves, that's going to be more important for the future, but also like their jobs, their hobbies, everything. So I wouldn't say that they're not as creative because
I would.
obviously our parents and our grandparents were creative in a different way. They didn't know what a 3D printer was.
I
Like, can
know,
you imagine
but
teaching grandpa what this is? And he's just going to be like, whoa,
yeah,
or
but there's
throw
I
a
feel like there's a
cross at us or
difference
something.
between that because the issue with the kids nowadays that I've seen at least, like I've seen examples of like high school kids in art classes. And a kid might be able to code something simple or even build an app or something, but if they can't draw a dog like even a cartoon dog. Like there's just such a gap in like I guess I'll call it like common sense creativity or basic.
But there were people in my art school classes as a senior in college who couldn't draw a cartoon dog.
Yeah,
So
but
I,
if
I don't think
25
that
of
that's
30 kids can't draw anything more than a stick figure dog, like that's more of an issue than grandpa not having a 3D printer in the 1950s when he graduated high school.
Do you think more than 25 of 30 adults can draw a cartoon dog right now if you gave them a pencil and paper?
Right.
Yes.
I don't.
I agree with Christian.
They're going to
I
look better
don't.
than the kids though.
Honestly, okay. So, of those kids, obviously, whenever you decide to have kids, Colin, our
We're
kids are
No,
having
going
a
to be
not.
dog.
different, right? Our kids are going to be different than their kids, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because we're inherently creative. Okay, so I think a lot of parents are almost habitually worse at being creative than their kids.
Are your parents creative, Mike? Because I would argue
No. Wait, hold on.
my family's very creative.
Okay, my mother, no, she's just straight.
No,
Like, I mean,
she has no interest in it,
she
or she is and doesn't like practice anything, or
no,
she's just straight up not
no,
interested, not good at anything,
she's not. No,
not
she just
creative.
takes everything at face value and is what it is.
Okay.
My dad, I get my creativity from my dad. He makes everything, anything. Just that's why I'm creative is because of my dad and my grandparents
Okay, that makes a lot of
because they
sense.
always they built stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so that funneled down to me. Okay, now my step siblings, their dad, my stepdad, is a hog farmer all his life. Their mom's a beautician. They aren't as creative as me and my brother. Okay,
Yeah.
because they grew up different and had different things. So, and this is probably a topic for another conversation, but parents these days are giving aren't letting their kids be creative.
Yeah.
See, we're gonna let our kids be creative. We're gonna make them because we know what to push them towards. They don't. Okay, so I think I know we always complain about the kids these days, but who's raising the kids?
No, I agree. I think you're right. I think the creative
So
kids come from creative families. I mean that's part of
now,
it. Or the kids that
You have to
had
you have to practice it.
right, or
yeah.
the
So
kids that
they're
had nothing and they had to get creative and
right. If if you have nothing, you find a way to make nothing into something.
yeah,
But if you have everything, you have no need to make something out of nothing
right.
because you already have it or you're going to be given it. So I think there's obviously kids that don't have creative parents that are going to find creativity because they have nothing else. There's going to be kids that are going to learn through us, and then there's just going to be kids where they don't know how to be creative because nobody ever showed them how to be creative.
Or didn't want to spend time with them to draw pictures
Hmm.
or sat them down in front of
Yeah.
TV instead, kind of thing. Yeah, I think you're right.
Hmm.
All right. This is the longest episode I've done so far. An hour and 51 minutes so far, and we're about to wrap up. So let's get to the Twitter poll results, actually with social media results in general. I asked on my Instagram page at PonderPod21. Ponder Podcast 2021. Is that what it
You
is?
don't even know your
Don't
thing.
even know.
What is
Oh my
my
goodness.
I think it's PonderPod 2021. Yeah. At PonderPod 2021 on Instagram. And if you would like to participate in these questions and or polls, please follow that page. I asked if you were a maker, yes or no. Like, do you just make stuff? 69% said yes on Twitter, and 83% said yes on Instagram. So that leaves 31 and 17% respectively for no. On Instagram, I also asked, why do you make stuff? And basically the answers that I got were because it makes them happy. So we didn't dive into the mental health side of things. I was going to. You brought up COVID. We could probably talk about that at another point too. But that's definitely a huge escape for a lot of people. We talked about it, I guess, when we talked about like making stuff outside of work if you're not a creative field versus whatever. So the other question was, what do you make? The categories were very broad because social media only gives you 4 options, which is a joke. But the options were fine art, mechanical type stuff like robots or whatever. That one said, what does that say? I can't read my own handwriting. Oh, people that make like design programs and woodworking, shop class type stuff. Sorry, that got really drawn out. I was like struggling to read why I said shop. I'm like, shop what? 57% said artistic. Nobody voted for the mechanical or the programming type fields. And then 43% said they did woodworking. That was surprising to me, honestly. If I would have put Legos, I think a lot more would have picked that option, but I didn't have any more room. And then same thing for Instagram. I asked what kind of art you do. Overwhelming was digital art, 66%. And then the rest had voted for Lego kits or kits in general, whether they make models, whatever. Last segment of Ponder Pod episode 4, Why Do We Make Stuff with Christian and Mike. We're going to do quick fire questions. Christian, I don't remember which ones I asked you in episode 2 of Ponder Pod, becoming a parent for the first time.
They were not fast questions. That's for sure.
This is supposed to be fast, Mike. In case you didn't know, if you've never watched this long of an episode, gotten to that point, some people are like, let me think. No, just quick, fire. It's lightning round.
First thing that comes to your mind. Set.
All right, we'll start easy so you get the hang of it. What's your favorite color? Mike first, always. Go.
White.
Christian, you said black last time, or gray. Okay. Favorite movie? Christian, if you already answered them, don't answer them again. Mike, what's your favorite movie?
Probably the I like the Batman.
Which Batman?
Dark Knight series.
Fair enough. Christian, did you answer that one before?
A favorite would be Scott Pilgrim.
Ooh, it's
Sorry,
a good one.
I didn't want to think about it. I know it's Harry Potter.
Fair enough. What about favorite book?
Favorite book
Favorite book
of Harry Potter or
in general?
in general? The Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. It's currently on book 4 of book 10.
You nerd. Christian?
We'll go with A Series of Unfortunate Events.
Favorite thing you have ever made?
It's a combination between the shaker table
And a
I
record
made
cabinet.
out of and a record cabinet.
That's your
Those are
favorite
my two
one? Really?
Yep.
I'm
My
definitely
two
going to
favorite
post a
things.
picture because it's a great record cabinet.
And I'll send you the picture of the shaker table I made. So
Sweet. Christian, your kid?
doesn't count.
Probably the skull print or the moon print. It was a wood carving from a college.
Oh yeah, I know
class.
what you're talking about. That big one that everybody contributed
Mhm.
to.
That's pretty cool.
If you were a teacher, what subject would you teach?
These aren't easy.
Would I want of what I have knowledge of, or
I mean, you'd obviously go to school for it, whatever. Let's not think about the logistics.
Okay.
Let's just say, what subject would you like to teach, given the option to teach a subject?
I would say woodworking, shop class, or history.
Nice.
I have a appreciation of history now that I wish I had when I was a teenager.
I mean, I loved history too, and I thought about majoring in history in college, and that would have been pointless. So I think you're just as well off. Christian, you said art last time. I remember that.
Science or design.
Do you believe in aliens?
I believe in.
Everybody always answers that one with, I believe in.
No, I believe there's something out there. I don't know if they are sophisticated, but I do believe in other organisms in space.
Fair enough.
I mean, I think there has to be something else. So yes.
Ghosts.
No.
No, I don't think so.
Chemtrails. No, just kidding. Who would play you in a movie about your life?
Oh, probably somebody that's not well paid or very,
Very well liked.
yeah, just probably a C-list actor.
Okay. I'm sure we can think of one for you.
That's tough.
David Arquette could play you. You kind of look like David Arquette.
Or Christian Bale from The Machinist.
Christian, who would play you? Dylan
I'd
and
say
Cole
you, but you
Sprouse.
suck as an actor, so I don't know.
I'll suck as an actor. Yeah, I'm not an actor. Last one. Favorite bit of advice you ever received?
Comes from one of my favorite podcasts. It's called
Ponderpod?
No Instruct. Close. It's called No Instructions. It's two dads that they got a YouTube channel and they just talk about stuff. He always talks about do better. So I use that do better, but I kind of changed it to be better.
Nice.
Just always be better.
Christian?
In the theme of creativity, I have two. One, good artists borrow, great artists steal.
Did you Google
And
quotes?
No.
You look like you're reading.
I'm
Did you
looking at
just
you
steal
and
that quote? That you?
No, but it's a good quote.
It is a good quote.
And the other one is a Casey Neistat video on YouTube, and it's titled "Do What You Can't," and it just talks about all the things like the odds of you getting married and having a kid and all this stuff, but also like there's no script written for us. There's nothing that we're supposed to be able to do, and it's kind of what you make it. So, in the spirit of creativity, literally, like there's no reason we should have access to 3D printers and we should be able to make like little teeny tiny mustaches, but for whatever reason we can. And to me, that just it's inspiring enough to literally mean that we can do it. There's no rules.
There's no rules.
Put your shirt back on.
All right, guys. That's 2 hours.
There's one rule.
There's one. Put your shirt back on. That's 2 hours, and I think that's a great place to stop. I definitely think, as I say at the end of every episode, I think we could do several follow-up episodes about being creative, about specific things. I think it'd be cool to do like a live stream, like on Twitch. We could have like just a conversation, and then it could always end up on YouTube. But it doesn't necessarily have to be like episode number 4 of Ponder Pod. It can just be kind of like this. Like it was less structured than the past episodes, but it was more of a thinking out loud and getting there. It sounded like we were trying to sell you a 3D printer, and we really weren't. But that's just where we're at right now, and what's.
But if you are, search Ender.
It's just what's in front of us right now, and what we're having fun with, and what we're kind of. I don't want to say bonding, but like what we're spending time messaging each other about,
make little tiny pots,
discussing.
Yeah.
All right, you can find PonderPod on Instagram at PonderPod2021. Twitter is my personal one, Colin_Gargano, or just click the link tree in the description on all sources of podcast. Stop showing all your stuff. Like and subscribe, comment, message me if you have an idea for a topic or a guest, or if you'd like to be a guest yourself. These episodes lately have been coming out every other week, and that'll probably stay the pattern. So that's all from me. You have any finishing? Let's finish off with what's the next thing you're gonna make? What's the goal? What's the one thing you really want to make?
Like with our printers, or just in general?
In general.
I want to make my basement.
That's fair.
I want to finish my basement.
We didn't even get into Fixer Upper, so that would be a whole episode. That's a good one.
Yeah. An Iron Man mask
that you can wear.
Probably.
You nerd.